5 months ago, I dropped a single avocado pit into a glass of water on my kitchen windowsill. Today, it's a tree standing knee-high with leaves the size of my hand. From one seed, I would have thrown in the trash. Here's the thing. Most folks try this with toothpicks in a jar, wait 3 months, and get nothing but a cracked, moldy pit. I did too, for years. After 2 decades of growing food from kitchen scraps, I figured out exactly why it stalls and how to get fast, steady growth instead. I'm going to walk you through this in 5 steps. And stick around to the end, because there's one thing I do the moment that stem hits 6 inches that turns a single spindly stick into a full, branching tree. Let me put a real number on what you just saw. 5 months ago, that tree was a single Hass avocado pit I scooped out for guacamole and almost dropped in the trash. Today, it stands about knee-high, right around 20 inches, with leaves the size of my open hand. The first roots pushed into the water in under 3 weeks. That's the benchmark I want you holding on to. Roots in 2 to 4 weeks, every time if you set it up right. Here's where most folks lose it. They suspend the pit on 3 toothpicks over a jam jar and walk away. The water sits there, going stagnant and cold. Mold creeps in around the base, and the exposed top of the pit dries out and cracks. 3 months later, they've got a moldy stone and a bruised ego. I did exactly that for years, so I'm going to walk you through this in 5 steps, from picking the pit to a branching little tree on your windowsill. And stick around to the end, because there's one thing I do the moment that stem hits 6 inches, a single cut that turns a spindly stick into a full, bushy tree. Let's get into it. Step 1, pick your pit and prep it right. Any avocado works, but I like a fat Hass pit because they're forgiving and they split fast. Most folks find a Hass splits cleaner than the big smooth pits from a Florida avocado, so if you've got the choice, start there. After you scoop it out, rinse it clean under the tap and let it dry on the counter for a day. That dry day matters. It makes the next part easier. Here's the part almost nobody does. That pit has a thin brown papery skin on it. A seed coat, kind of like the skin on an almond. Peel it off, all of it. Underneath you'll find a smooth tan seed, sometimes with a slight pinkish blush. With that papery coat gone, the pit can drink up water directly, and it'll split open in root weeks faster than one left wrapped up. The first time I tried avocados, I left that skin on every single time, and wondered why I was waiting 2 and 3 months for nothing. Peel it. Now look at the shape. One end is broad and flat. That's the bottom, and that's where the roots come out. The other end is more pointed. That's the top, and that's where your stem pushes up. Get this backwards and the pit will just sit there confused. Fat end down, pointed end up. Burn that into your memory. Do this much, and you've already done more than most people who try this. You've got a clean, peeled pit that knows which way is up. That's your win for step 1. Small, but everything else builds on it. Step 2. Set it in water the right way. Forget the toothpicks. I know every picture you've ever seen has 3 toothpicks jammed into a pit hanging over a jar, but you don't need them. Find a small clear glass with a narrow neck, a juice glass, an old jam jar, whatever you pulled out of the recycling bin. The best container is the one you already own, and the second best is the one you pulled out of the recycling bin. Set the pit in so the neck of the glass cradles it, fat end down, and fill the water until just the bottom inch of the pit is submerged. Only the bottom inch. Not half, not the whole thing. The base needs to sit in water so the roots can drink, but the top has to stay up in the air and dry. That balance it is the whole game. I use clear glass for a reason, and it's not for looks, though Pepper, my old cat, does seem to enjoy watching it on the windowsill. Clear glass lets you see everything. The moment that pit cracks down the middle, the first white root nub poking out the bottom, the way the roots branch and thicken week by week. That window keeps you from poking and prodding the thing to death. When I first started growing food, regrowing green onion ends in a glass of water back in my Portland apartment, That see-through view was half the fun. You watch life happen right there on your counter. Your win here is simple. A peeled pit sitting steady in a clear glass, bottom inch in water, no toothpicks in sight. Step 3. Give it warmth and fresh water. This is the fix for everything that goes wrong with the toothpick crowd, so listen close. Avocados come from warm places, and that pit will not wake up in a cold room. It wants to be right around 70 to 75 degrees. The single best spot in most homes is the top of the refrigerator. It runs a few degrees warmer than the rest of the kitchen, and it's out of the draft. A warm windowsill that gets gentle light works too. Below 65, the roots just stall, and the pit sits there for weeks, doing absolutely nothing. Then there's the water. Change it completely every 3 to 4 days. Don't just top it off. Dump it out, rinse the glass, and refill with fresh room temperature water. Fresh water carries oxygen, and oxygen is what keeps the base healthy and white instead of slimy and brown. Stagnant water is where the mold comes from. That's the whole reason those suspended pits turn into a cracked, moldy mess. Nobody ever changes the water. It goes sour, and the rot climbs right up into the seed. Gloria, my mentor down in San Francisco, has been growing food on her apartment balcony for 20-some years, and she taught me this with everything she roots in water. On her balcony, she keeps a row of glasses going year-round, green onions, a piece of ginger, an avocado pit or two. And every few days, she lines them up at the sink and refreshes every single one. 20 years of that one habit is why her balcony outproduces gardens 10 times its size. Somewhere in those first 2 to 4 weeks, the pit splits down the middle. That first pale root reaches into the glass, and a green shoot lifts up out of the top. That's your win, and it's a good one. A pit you'd have thrown away is now a living thing. Step 4. Move it to soil at the right moment. This is where timing matters, and people either rush it or wait too long. The trigger I watch for is 2 things together. The roots reaching about 3 inches long and the stem standing 6 to 7 inches tall. That usually lands somewhere around week 6 to 8. When you see both, it's time. Pick a pot that's 8 to 10 inches across with a drainage hole in the bottom. That hole is not optional. Avocados hate sitting in soggy soil more than almost anything. Fill it with a free-draining potting mix. I cut regular potting soil with a couple handfuls of perlite or coarse sand so the water runs through instead of pooling. Gently set the pit in and firm the soil around the roots. But here's the key. Leave the top half of the pit poking up above the soil line. Bury it completely and it'll rot on you. Half in, half out. Water it in well, then put it back in its bright, warm spot. The plant will sulk for a few days while the roots settle into their new home. That's normal. Don't panic and don't drown it trying to help. I learned the hard way that you can't muscle a plant into doing what you want. The first 3 tomato plants I ever grew, I killed in a single summer, mostly by loving them to death. Too much water, too much fussing. Avocados are the same. Set it up right, then leave it be. Your win for step 4 is a pit standing upright in its own pot, roots tucked into real soil, ready to actually take off. Step 5. Light, water, and a little food for steady growth. Now that it's in soil, 3 things drive that fast climb you saw at the start. First, light. An avocado wants at least 6 hours of bright light a day, and a south or west-facing window is ideal. If your light's a little weak, the plant will tell you. It'll stretch tall and thin, reaching for the glass, with big gaps between the leaves. That's leggy growth, and it means move it brighter. You don't need a fancy grow setup. You don't need a yard. You need a window. That's the whole truth of it. Second, water. Check the soil with your finger, and only water when the top inch is dry. When you do water, water deeply until it runs out the bottom, then let it dry back down before the next drink. Constant soggy soil is the #1 killer of potted avocados. So when in doubt, Wait a day. Third, a little food. Once a month through the growing season, give it a light feeding with a balanced liquid fertilizer mixed to about half the strength on the label. Half strength, avocados burn easily on too much. That gentle monthly feeding is what carried mine from a skinny seedling to a knee-high tree with those hand-sized leaves in 5 months flat. I was measuring it against the calendar, and once it settled into soil, it put on a couple of inches of new growth a month, right on schedule. Keep those 3 dialed in, and the growth is genuinely steady. A new flush of leaves every few weeks, the trunk thickening, the whole thing filling out. Your win here is the big one. A healthy, growing avocado tree on your windowsill from a single seed you almost threw in the trash. Now, if what I'm showing you today is making sense, and you're starting to realize you've been throwing away free food for years without knowing it, let me point you somewhere. I put everything I know into a book called The 30-Day Kitchen Scrap Garden Protocol. Chapter 5 is an A to Z regrow encyclopedia, and the avocado pit-to-tree method is in there in full, with propagation diagrams showing the exact water level, the cutting angle, and how the roots develop stage by stage. It's $17 at backyardbuddybooks.com. If you're watching on your TV, grab your phone and point it at the QR code on screen. Take your time finding it. Unlock the phone, open the camera. I'll wait right here. And if you're already on your phone, the link's down in the description. All right, let's keep going. Let me save you the years I wasted, because I made every one of these mistakes myself. First, leaving that brown papery seed coat on the pit. I did this for ages, and I'd watch the thing sit in water for 2-3 months and never split. That coat acts like a raincoat. Water can't get in, so the pit can't swell and crack open. Peel it off, and you'll often see a split inside 3 weeks instead of never. Second, never actually changing the water. A lot of folks just top it off. They see the level drop and add a splash more. That's the single most common reason people end up with a cracked, moldy pit. Stagnant water grows mold. The mold creeps up the base, and the whole bottom rots before a root ever forms. Dump it completely and refill with fresh water every 3 to 4 days. Fresh, oxygenated water every time. Third, a cold windowsill or a drafty corner. This one fooled me for a whole winter. If that spot drops below 65 degrees, the roots stall out. The pit sits there for weeks looking dead while you lose faith. Avocados are tropical, they want it warm. Keep it at 70 to 75 degrees, top of the fridge if your window's cold, and those roots wake right up. Get those 3 things right, and you've eliminated almost every reason this fails. Now for the thing I promised you at the very start, the one move I make the moment that stem hits 6 inches. Here it is. When your single stem reaches 6 inches tall, take a clean pair of pruners and cut it back to about 3 inches. Yes, you cut off the top half, growth tip and all. I know. It feels wrong to take scissors to a healthy plant you worked weeks to grow. That fear is exactly why most people end up with one tall, spindly stick instead of a tree. Here's why it works. The very tip of that stem makes a growth hormone that travels down and keeps all the lower buds asleep. Gardeners call it apical dominance. The top bud is the boss, and it tells the side buds to stay dormant. As long as that tip is there, the plant pours everything into going up, not out. Cut the tip off, and the boss is gone. The suppression stops, and within 2 to 3 weeks, 2, 3, even 4 side shoots wake up and push out along the stem. That's the whole secret. One snip turns a lonely stalk into a branching, bushy tree. Mine doubled its width in a month after that cut. Don't be afraid of it. The cut is what makes the tree. Before I let you go, keep in mind this avocado is a long game. It won't fruit for years, and that's fine, because what you've really started is a self-sustaining plant grown from a scrap you'd have trashed. If that idea grabs you, turning throwaway scraps into food that lasts, Chapter 9 of the book is all about the long game, fruit from scraps and systems that feed you for decades. My mentor Gloria has kept a producing balcony garden going for over 20 years, much of it from scraps, and her balcony is the proof that this stuff lasts. It's the guide I wish I'd had 10 years ago when I was killing tomato plants in my Portland apartment, with no yard, no money, and no clue. Find it at backyardbuddybooks.com. TV viewers, scan that QR code on screen. Take a moment, grab your phone, no rush. Phone folks, the link's down in the description. So that's it, a knee-high branching avocado tree in 5 months from a single pit you almost dropped in the trash. This is the whole reason I do what I do. You don't need a yard, you need a window. Start with 1 pit this week, just 1. Rinse it, peel it, set it in a glass, and put it somewhere warm. And once that's going, look at what else is on your counter. A knob of ginger or the root end of a green onion will regrow on that same windowsill while you wait. Drop a comment and let me know how your pit's coming along. I read them all. Until next time, keep growing your own food, my friend.